Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. We're so glad to have you with us. I know we've got a few more people working on joining. So as we do that, if you can just take a minute, the June theme and today's session is really focused on identifying and celebrating successes, those small wins that happen throughout your student success system journey. So to kind of get us warmed up today, if you want to just take a minute and share one of those milestones that you have achieved with your student success systems in the last year, something that you've accomplished, that you've celebrated with your team. And then we're going to leave that for just a minute as we have folks continue to join us, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, and I love this first one. We held consistent meetings. It feels small, but it feels so big. We said we were going to meet and we did it consistently. And that's a big one. Getting started in schools, love it. Having 6 high school students graduating with scholarships is not a small win, Loretta. Way to go. That's great. That's fantastic. Oh, sharing those positives with the school board next week. So that's a big milestone coming up. Yes, thank you. All right, and I'm looking at the time. So I'm going to say, please keep sharing these in the chat. Keep it going because it's going to keep coming up throughout the session today and all the way through to the end. So please keep sharing those successes. Um, This is the June session of the Student Success District Network, where we are focusing our monthly theme on identifying and communicating successes in student success system implementation. Again, I think everyone's in all the way now. We're sharing in the chat those milestones that we've achieved in the last year that we're celebrating related to student success system implementation. As a quick reminder for anyone who's new here today, the Student Support District Network is hosted by the Grad Partnership for Student Success. This Grad Partnership is focused on supporting and building student success systems and student success system ecosystems across communities across the country. There's a partnership of 12 organizations, and there is a variety of ways that we work to support this implementation, including this network. That the student success systems work with through Grad Partnership really focuses on implementing these 4 components or essential elements in the student success framework. I'm just going to give this a second here, and we're going to go ahead and move on to talk a little about what that means for us and who we are today. This is the Student Success District Network. We have been meeting for the entirety of the last school year. This is our last session this year, our last theme. And this is a network for district teams who are working on implementing student success systems, supporting their district and their schools with that implementation and developing a peer learning network for those individuals and teams. Today, we are really spending most of our time in a panel discussion. I'm really excited to introduce that and tell everyone a little more about that. We have a real quick little intro kind of setting the stage before that. And that's really what we're looking at today. We're looking at closing out the year. I know everyone is either recently finished school or you're getting ready to finish school. And we are focusing on what are those positives that we're going to take away from this school year. I will be facilitating today. I am the Student Success District Network Coordinator, Marie Husby Slater. I am joined with several other individuals, but I will be introducing them in a few minutes. As I said, this is a peer learning organization. And so with that, we are focused on trying to build community. And so we have a few community norms that we keep in mind for our conversations and activities through the session and each of the themes. So I'm going to leave these up for a few seconds. I'm not going to read all of them, but in case we have anyone new or anyone who needs a refresher, here are just our norms to keep in mind as we're engaging today. Okay. And with that, we'll move into celebrating successes. So over the course of the year with the Student Success District Support Network, we focused on topics of interest to district teams who are implementing student success systems. And for those of you who have been around throughout the year, hopefully each of these monthly topics has helped you identify future milestones and areas of exploration for your student success systems and your implementation. So our final theme this year is really about recognizing the small wins that have come along with that work, celebrating those or celebrating those wins as a way of elevating your learning and building momentum for future implementation. So what is implementation and what is implementation success? We often think of it as being this straight line, right? We set a goal, we create a plan, and we set off to achieve our goal. But we also know that in reality, um, implementation and success is seldom a straight path from start to finish. There are ups and downs, there's unexpected challenges, and there's lessons along the way that lead to improved action and results. And that success and goals aren't achieved only at the end of your journey. Success comes from achieving milestones and small wins along the way to your larger goals, then using those accomplishments to learn, adjust, and leverage for future success. The importance of those small wins along the way is what we're focusing on today. In previous network sessions, we've talked about improvement science and how improvement science can facilitate student success system implementation. In October, we introduced the improvement science principles and how high-level setting of strategies can help make plans for implementation. Then in March, we had our theme introduced a process for using improvement science to help with student success team implementation. The graphic on this slide and the next slide come from that session and are here to highlight the importance of using your team processes, not just to set the milestones, but also celebrate and leverage those wins along your journey. So we often focus on improvement cycles, typically things like plan, do, study, act, as a way of implementing improvement science in education. Our current theme is asking us to hit pause in each of those cycles. So when we get to the study phase, we don't just look at what worked and what didn't. We also take the time to elevate and celebrate what we learned from that cycle. In fact, in this team-based process that we shared in March, we both focused on those improvement cycles and then separately called out celebrating and recognizing small wins along the way, right? We know it's important to create and define achievable goals. We talk about things like SMART goals and setting 30, 60, 90-day plans and identifying quick wins. And the old proverb, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, is really one of our most pervasive cultural examples of how we talk about the importance of setting those small goals along the way and celebrating achieving them as we go. So these help us build momentum, they help us build confidence, identify what's working, and how to leverage those lessons and keep moving forward. So with that, before we move into our panel, I want to quickly acknowledge one, that like that chaotic implementation path, life and work is complex, right? That we're going to have setbacks, we're going to have challenges, and that we're celebrating those small wins, not in spite of them, but because overcoming those challenges is part of success itself. So both when things go well and when things don't go well, we're still getting to those points of implementation success along the way. So what does it mean to celebrate small wins along the way? This doesn't have to be big, and it shouldn't take a significant amount of time or effort. It's meant to help you on your way, not become additional work. So really, you're looking at what works for you and your team and being responsive to that and fitting it into your plan. So think about things like 3 simple steps. Document the win, send a team email, create a win list, hold a brief reflection activity during a meeting where you're, capturing thoughts in, on paper, on whiteboard, however works for you. Participate in simple rewards. Again, think of the things that work for you and your team: coffee, treats, swag that the team appreciates, brief celebrations during a team meeting, or one that I love and think is particularly important for all of us as busy adults. Intentional rest can be a form of a reward, right? We end a meeting early and say, protect this time on your calendar, go rest, go reset. Don't jump to your next thing 5 minutes early. And finally, share your success with others. So communicate your win and what it means for your team with those who are impacted by the work, and celebrate with those who are experiencing their own small wins and sharing how they have been positively impacted by your team's work. So it's not just here's what we have accomplished and we're celebrating our accomplishment. We want to hear from others about how this work is positively impacting you and how we can help elevate that. And always keep in mind when you're sharing successes, what others are most comfortable with, and making sure that we're responsive to our team and our larger community in that way. And so with that, I think I've quickly set the stage for what we're really here to focus on today, which is a panel discussion with several local implementing partners. So I'm joined today by 4 individuals. Dina Zamor is the Student Services Manager for New York City Public Schools District 3 and supports all 28 principals in the district. She has been the district lead on student success systems and has been working with the Grad Partnership for 2 years. She's joined today by Sheena Lal, who provides technical assistance support from Grad Partnership to the District 3 Student Success System implementation work. District 3 has been focused on creating a student success system framework that is responsive to their context and their student needs. In the first year of their student success system development, D3 focused on research and design with 4 participating schools. And this year, they scaled that effort to implementing in 16 participating schools. Schools in District 3 are leaning heavily into human-centered design and collaborating with students, staff, and families on interventions that can support students who have been flagged by a predictive indicator related to connectedness data. We're also joined today by Andrea Schonbacher and Devin Ravito, who are joining us from the Center for Technology and Education at Johns Hopkins School of Education. The CTE team is working with the Capital School District in Dover, Delaware, to provide support to re-envisioning their MTSS and student success systems within the district. The Center for Technology and Education has been supporting Capital School District with vision setting for the updated MTSS, professional learning for school teams, and providing guidance for revisions on their existing playbook and guidance material. The CTE support for Capital School District has focused on working with their large comprehensive high school to identify students in need of support through their student success system and connecting those students with the support or intervention needed to address their needs. And the school district plans to launch the updated guidance, tools, and resources they've been working on in the next school year. So if everyone can please help me electronically welcome our panel for today's conversation. Ladies, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So we're here to talk about your kind of implementation path student success system work over the last year and what setting and achieving milestones and then celebrating those milestones has looked like for you. So everyone knows we do have three set discussion questions for the panel, but we are reserving a little time at the end for open Q&A. So as you're listening, if there is something that comes up that you would like to ask one of our panelists, please feel free to drop it in the chat or hold on to it and you can come off mic towards the end of our discussion. So to begin with, could you share a little about some of the student success system milestones you set for this year, either with Capital School District or District 3, whoever is ready to get started?
I can go first. Devin Revito, work for with Capital School District, and what are some student success system milestones we set for this year? So this is our second year. In our first year, we noticed that our team really struggled to get beyond just looking at data, right? The next part of after data is actionable steps. So our goal this year was to actually bring interventions into action and make them set them up, start them, data collect. And that was a very scary part of the team. They were super nervous. They put barriers in there that where they didn't want to start right away, but when they got started, the interventions were super successful. And they kind of saw the light of why we're taking data, why we need these interventions. And I think it helped them, like it ripped the Band-Aid off, really. So that was our goal this year and the milestone.
Thank you, Devin. Dina, looks like you're ready to share for District 3.
Sure. So, one of the things that we noticed, so last year, as I shared in the chat, we was our first year with using student success systems, in partnership with Sheena, and we had four schools doing the R&D process and trying to figure out what this looked like because our plan was to roll it out over 3 years to all the schools in the district. There are 28 schools in our district. And so what we realized was it took us a very long time to get to the design session portion of the cycle. And when we got there, things started to click for the schools. Got excited, the kids got excited, having that student voice and having and implementing an intervention that the students had come up with was like, which was in many ways different than what the school had assumed that they were going to be doing. Um, was really, as I said, exciting, and the schools really that created a lot of buy-in. And so, our milestone for this school year, we were supposed to have 12 schools, but my superintendent at the time was very excited and he decided to make us do 16 schools. But also we presented at the end to all the principals and a lot and we wanted it to be like sign up to do this. Like if you're interested in this, sign up to do it. So we had a lot of interest from the principals. So we ended up with 16 schools. And I tried to speak with my superintendent about who should we say you can join next year so we can have 12, and he's like, nope, you're going to do all of them. So we did all of them and we supported all of them. And I would say like the big milestone that he set for us was to make sure that everyone got through a design session by Thanksgiving. And I would say we did not get every school to meet that milestone, but the majority of them we did. And so that felt like a real achievement since I think our first design session for the previous year, last year, I think was like in March or April. And so getting us to that point where we were ready to do that, I think was a big milestone. The other piece that was a milestone was we set up monthly meetings for whoever the student success system lead was, so we could all be on the same page as to what was supposed to happen each month of the cycle, or like where in the cycle they should be month to month and what new information they should be bringing in. And we were very successful in getting almost every single student success system lead at each of those meetings. So I would say like those are two of the milestones that we had set up for ourselves that we can celebrate, mostly getting to. Did you have anything to add, Sheena?
I wasn't sure if I should. I would say yes to both of those milestones, and also something that we wanted to make sure we were doing was offering equitable to support to every school. And, we very much followed like a we will do this with you. You are not alone, right? Like if you're comfortable to do this on your own, feel free, do the root cause analysis, on your own, or we'll come. And so I think that was a more of a scheduling milestone for me and Dina. We realized we had to split up very quickly to get a lot of things done. And we did. We supported schools through their root cause analysis, through their design sessions, and we tried to be as present in person or virtual, whatever they wanted. We tried to really listen to what they felt they needed for support. But I think hitting a milestone was feeling like 16 schools knew they could say, hey, we need your help.
Fantastic. Yes. Thank you, Dina and Sheena. So thinking about those milestones, can you tell us a little bit about some of the lessons learned that you had in achieving that milestone and what success looked like in achieving it? And it looks like Andrea, you ready to get started?
Yes, thank you so much, Marie. As Devin was saying earlier, our milestone was to really embrace that evidence-based practice for an intervention to support students that were really flagging as chronically absent. And so one of the things that we learned is that in looking at the data, we're able to identify students that really met and matched nicely with the Check and Connect program. And so we learned that when you are able to use an intervention that is really well defined and has very clear parameters for success and what success looks like, it is a lot easier for staff and teachers and educators to understand what is expected of them. And in the past, we had used maybe bits or pieces or elements of interventions. So having that very spelled out intervention was very helpful. But in addition, being graceful with one another and understanding that just because we can't do it exactly with fidelity, for example, 60 minutes every single week, that is not a reason to not try. And so we inched our way up. We started with, hey, mentors, if you can get with your mentee for 15 minutes a week, that is okay. And then let's grow from 15 and let's make it 30. And so having that milestone mindset really helped all of the team get more comfortable with the idea of biting off something like Check and Connect. So really celebrating that and then learning that we don't have to be perfect. We just have to keep coming back to the data, looking at how we did, and then what we need to adjust slowly but surely, as long as we're doing it consistently. Devin, did you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, I loved everything that you said about that. Besides Check and Connect, I think one of the things they also learned is that they already have a lot of interventions happening within the school that they didn't realize they could place their students into. So we did do an intervention catalog. We do it every summer with them. And then when we got down to what students we needed to be placed in those, we could tweak those interventions to be more data driven and align with what the students needed. I think when we first started the intervention catalog, they thought they had to create new interventions every single year. And it was like, that's really exhausting. You're putting a lot of pressure on yourselves. So finding something that had a great protocol involved or things that were already in place at the school were like the first things we did. Because we did not want to create something in the middle of the year where everyone is feeling overwhelmed. And then now we have to create a new intervention and find staff for that and find the protocol and find the mentors. So I think them realizing that they had the strategies that they needed, they had the interventions, and they had like a protocol for check and connect that they could already use to reach that milestone. Really helped them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ladies. I think that's great. And really important points, right? That we don't have to do something new every year, right? That something doesn't have to be brand new to work. That if we have something that's working, we look at the data supports that it's working. If we need to make tweaks, and we keep going with it. And recognizing that work, I think recognizing that what you already have in place is a win in itself that folks often kind of overlook a little bit, right? That we're already doing things. And do we have data that shows whether or not these things are working? Oh, we do? Okay, that's like right there, a baseline to start from that says that we're not starting from scratch every year. And Andrea, I know when you talked about check and connect as we're getting ready for today, you mentioned that, and you mentioned just now how you would continue looking at the data throughout the process. One of the things you mentioned before is how by the end of the year you were seeing trends in the data
Mhm.
about whether or not check and connect was effective. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. And in fact, Devin, she was the data cruncher, and she was just looking at all of this data from their success system, their infinite campus system. And Devin, I'll let you explain, but basically, she was looking across the students and found this really interesting trend that she was then able to share with the team. If you want to go ahead and talk through it.
Sure. So they have Infinite Campus, but they also have something called Eye Tracker. That's a data center. And so they put their interventions into Eye Tracker, and they could mark the minutes that they saw the student each week. And so I would take the minutes that they saw the student and then also base it off of the attendance that the student had. So we would just slowly see that the more minutes that a student had with their mentor, their attendance increased from, I think we started quarter two until now, we had about 60% increase in attendance when they had their mentors checking in with them at least 30 minutes a week. So even showing the team that data is so important, and like yes, it feels like it's working, but it's so important and so like refreshing to see that the numbers actually relate to why we feel so successful. So that also helped them to say we want to continue this intervention again because they saw the numbers actually move.
And
Fantastic.
so,
Thank you, ladies.
absolutely. Thank you, Marie.
Yeah. And Dina, I know you shared the milestone was to get the design sessions in by Thanksgiving, and you didn't make Thanksgiving, but I believe you did get all the design sessions in. So could you tell us a little bit more about your lessons learned and what that success looked like?
Sure. So I think one of the things that we learned this year, last year, we insisted that the principals be a part of the conversation in all stages, which we got, we didn't get pushback from in a unbelieving way. Like people didn't believe that it would be a good system, but more the pushback came from like there's so many different priorities, there's so much going on. Like, we can't. It's like this one more thing that why do I have to be here if I have a lead, why do I also have to be here? That's what, that's the, distributive leadership component. But I think for us this year, we realized in excusing the principal or a administrator um, from being a part of it and not and in some spaces the person who the administrator chose to be the student success lead had the buy-in from the community and had the ability to move forward with an intervention and roll it out and had a team to do that with. And in some of our schools it was an individual who didn't really have the same level of ability to roll an intervention out and felt kind of stuck because their principal or their assistant principal wasn't either green lighting it or it wasn't like top priority. And so I think one of the lessons learned for us was the importance of making sure that the person in the seat of the student success lead has the, whether it's authority or social capital or whatever it is that's needed in a school in order to really get that work pushed forward. For me, that was like a huge learning. That was a huge learning for me this year because my hope was that since the principals knew about it and they had signed on for it, that they would give um, they would give the authority to the person they selected. And we did come up against a few schools that, while they had the design session, had trouble getting past that because they didn't feel like they ha were able to um, implement, get like if it's a guidance counselor who's the lead, getting the classroom teachers to implement the intervention that they decided on wasn't, they didn't feel comfortable being the ones saying like you have to do this thing. So that was a lesson learned for me for sure. What do you think, Sheena?
I think logistically, Dina and I recognize that a lesson for scheduling this many design sessions included like we kind of gave schools a very open window, and I think it would have been better for us to say, hey, this is the week, this is happening, you have to figure it out within this week, fit into our schedule, rather than being a little more like, oh, when is a good time for you guys? Obviously we want to flex and work with the schools, but I think sometimes that extra wiggle room left us like, oh no, we we didn't get to this, we want to continue to do this. I think another really big takeaway from us this year was not just the, is there an admin on the team, but also the fact that teaming was so important. So yeah, it was like there were sometimes just kind of one person, and when the whole system was riding on like just one person doing the whole thing, it was wonderful because that one person was able to accomplish the intervention, made relationships with students, had a shift in their own mindset, but it did not have an impact on the school in the way that it could have had if there were more people on the team. And so we found that like we're going to have to be really, really explicit this year when we approach principals about our student success teams, and maybe just more clear on what we're expecting from the team. We had 16 separate and really unique interventions. And like, we definitely had some student voice in there. There was trying to be things that we probably wouldn't think of. Students came up with like a digital classroom for telling the dean when something was wrong. Like if they heard there was a fight happening, it would be like a Google Classroom. They could go in and like type, hey, I'm worried about this kid. And that was clearly from a student because I don't think we would have thought of that ourselves. And we also had, students that we had some schools focusing on sleeping habits for lateness, and students were like, well, you can teach me all the things you want to teach me in school, but I'm not going to remember. So I need something that I can physically take home to my bedroom that will remind me of all the tips that you're giving me now. And it was just like everything that we did was enhanced by students. And I think it could have gone even further if we had the teams and the right amount of adults kind of set up for every team.
Yes, thank you both so much for sharing all of that. And I think, Sheena, especially your comment about the importance of teams and where you saw the difference in impact where you had the team buy-in is like so connected to everything that we focused on throughout the year here in the district network, because it has been all about your district team and supporting that team in understanding your work, doing it within your context, setting your goals, exploring student success systems and moving them forward. Um, yeah, I feel like you two just like hit on like all the things. You just hit on all the things. Like especially Sheena, if I think about like back to conversations that you and I have had over the last like 4 years or so, almost everything we've talked about was just was just summarized so nicely. So thank you both for sharing everything about what District 3 has been accomplishing over this last year, because it's not small, um, especially in complex systems. A move from 12 schools to 16 schools, that like increase of four in and of itself is an unanticipated challenge that needed to be incorporated. So with about we've got like 10-ish minutes left. Um, can you each share a little bit about how you shared your lessons learned and your successes? Like who you shared with them with, what kind of a result you saw from sharing, how people reacted, how it was used to help, leverage those successes, create the buy-in, your plans. I know some, we're still at the end of the school year, so some plans are still getting finished and uh, sent out throughout the summer. So how are you planning to learn from these milestone successes and share them with others?
I'll start. So for us, we didn't share as much successes as we wanted. However, I would say just in general, sharing out to the school what our vision is for a school student success team was really important. I think that when that happened, they did that in December. So over 2 years of being, well, be 2 years with having the system, they finally shared out with their school in December what we were doing. They had an outpouring of teachers that wanted to support them, and said, "Hey, I really want to help. How can I help? Oh, I had no idea this student was working on this. Can I help him in some way?" So one, sharing out with just the school staff in general made the team feel like they weren't trying to tackle this all on their own. So that was really important. Another time, I think just recently, a couple of weeks ago, we shared out with some district leaders the data about attendance and course performance, and we shared that we need support with attendance through the district. And they also said, "We would love to help. We want to do this with you, and just let us know what you need." So for our team, our admin really thought that they were this silo, right? And they were just working by themselves and couldn't get any other support. And so when they were able to share out what they were doing, a lot more people, district-wise teachers that they didn't think they would get support from, like really want to help out. So I think that was amazing for them. Andrea, do you want to share anything?
Yeah, I think in addition, the example that you explained earlier, Devin, about using eye tracker to capture data, sharing that out, I saw the admin team have an aha moment about why collecting the data is so important. And I think we know that there are systems like eye tracker and Infinite Campus that everybody has the ability to use, but it feels like an add-on. And so we had great conversation when the team, as a team, we started to see the difference in collecting the data and seeing the power in whether or not students were receiving the intervention. They were able to say, well, wait a minute, we can use this tool and apply it to all of our ELA interventions or math interventions. They had that aha where they said, wait a minute, this actually is going to be powerful. We can message this in a way to our whole staff that it is part of how we operate, not something in addition to the work that we're already doing. So I think that was really powerful aha as well.
All right, fantastic. Thank you both for sharing that. And I think it's really important to just acknowledge before we move on that major mindset shift that Devin talked about, right? That from thinking that you're a silo, thinking that you have to do it by yourself, to just by sharing the work, realizing that that's not necessarily true, and that there is this larger community, and that we do have to do this together. That student success teamwork can't be an island, because it is so integral to everything else that's happening in the school. So thank you, ladies, both for sharing how you have shared your success and learned from that so far this year. Dina, could you tell us a little about how you have been and are planning to share your successes in District 3?
Yeah, of course. Sheena, I actually would love for Sheena to start this one because she made a really lovely celebration for everybody.
Yes. Okay. So we definitely had a final convening, and I tried to make it a big deal. Like we had, we convened with all 16 schools. I tried to invite some like outside partners. I really wanted people to feel like, hey, I've worked really hard on this and I deserve to, get some shine. And so we did a small first like AI video that was like, thanks so much for all of the work you did, and a summary of like what every school did, because although all 16 schools did meet and they were talking to each other throughout the year, there was never like a formal school one, talk to schools 2 through 15 and tell them exactly what you're doing. So this was like a nice, hey, look at what everyone's been doing all year. And instead of like, giving them more content, we allowed for some celebratory, like, feelings and conversations. We gave them little swag bags and we just showed our gratitude. And we had a bit of a celebration instead of feeling like, oh, we're here at another like work meeting where I have to sit down and take notes. And it was hopefully, it felt a little calmer than that. We gave everyone a little certificate for the pieces of the process that they were able to complete. I did, in fact, before we did the celebration, I sent out a survey and I said, how would you like to be celebrated? Because some people don't want to get up in front of everyone. And some people are like, yes, announce me at a board meeting. I want everyone to know what I did. And so we took a little, survey to see what people wanted. And surprisingly, certificates were like a really big deal. So we did celebrate with some certificates.
And also Sheena put together a really beautiful recap of each of the interventions that the schools selected and how the interventions went based on our meetings with each school. So everyone got this packet that shared not only their successes but also the other schools, so they could look through and see all the different interventions um, that we had throughout the district. And then part of that celebration also was a reflection around like, what is this, like, how do I make this better for next year? So I think to me, part of sharing success is also like getting feedback, so that we're asking the experts in the room, like, how did this work for you? What would make it better when we do this next year? Because you're doing it again. And then we're adding more people. So like what could this look like? How could we improve this? While we are celebrating the successes you have had, how can we then build on that to make more even more successful for next year?
And I would add, this might be very unique, but District 3 had their superintendent promoted to Chancellor of New York City Public Schools. And so then part of what was useful in sharing was like catching the new superintendent up on like, hey, this is what we've done. So it was helpful in terms of also being able to get buy-in for student success systems to continue in District 3 next year. And so it's a great way to tell your story, and telling your story is always really important, and focusing on what went right can also be a wonderful way to get some, I guess, all the other types of support you need. If you need support from, a district or a state level commission, whatever you need, it is helpful in many, many different ways to share your successes.
And Sheena was able to get a bunch of partners, a bunch of other organizations, to consider partnering with us and supporting some of the missions and visions of those schools. What they want to do, whether it's, mentoring or STEM. And so Sheena did a really good job of finding the resources and the different folks who could serve in that purpose that were not school-based. And so that's work that she started to collect all these people and bring them in, so that they could help with the work, so that people didn't feel alone, or like, and which harkens back to the idea of like making sure that we have a team at every school doing this, and sometimes having a community organization that's part of the team can be really helpful. And so acknowledging the work they did and saying, here's a way to move the work forward where you're not only by yourself.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you both so much. And I really want to make sure to elevate, Dina, your comment about feedback. because while, the focus today is about identifying our, small wins along our improvement cycles and implementation path and elevating those and sharing those. That doesn't change that we are talking about doing this within an improvement process. And so while we're identifying and elevating those wins, that doesn't mean that we don't have something to learn. And so gathering that feedback and making sure that we are learning and getting ready for that next round of improvement cycle, that next phase of implementation is, I think, really important. So we're getting close to time. So I want to thank all four of you ladies for taking the time to join us today and for sharing your stories and what you've been working on with your student success systems. We have about 7 minutes, maybe 6 minutes, to answer some general questions from anyone on today who, if there's something you'd like to hear more about, please go ahead and drop that in the chat. We have a small enough group that if you'd like to come off mute, please feel free to do that as well. So if you've been holding that question, now is the time to bring it up to the group. All right, I guess if there are no questions at this time, I will say one final thank you. Dina, Devin, Andrea, Sheena, thank you each for joining today. We really appreciate all of your work that you're doing to implement student success systems and support others to do that, and for taking the time to join us today so that others can learn from you. And with that, as we're getting ready to close out, we're still celebrating those milestones in implementation. And so as you get ready to leave, if you want to go ahead and drop in the chat, thinking about that milestone you shared at the beginning, or even if you were just thinking about it and you didn't get it into the chat, how can you share or celebrate that success? Who would you do it with? And how would that help you create momentum for moving forward? So there's just something to think about. Please go ahead and put that in the chat as we're finishing up over the next couple of minutes. And I will actually put that in the chat. So as I move on to the next slides, it is still up there for anyone who is thinking on that. So that brings us to closing out today's session and our June theme, the end of our year. As always, the follow-up will include not just the recording for today, but a snapshot of today's theme that includes a description of what we've focused on for the month of June, some supporting resources, which for this month include things about success stories and identifying milestones. And actually, District 3 has been generous enough to share the graphic that Sheena created about school goals, interventions, and milestones. And so we have that there as an example, like an artifact of something that was shared during that celebration that they talked about. That snapshot also includes some next steps that are based on our theme and our conversation today. If you're thinking about, oh, today I loved this panel, I loved what I heard and learned, I'm still not quite sure what my next steps are to move this forward. A couple of suggestions in there for some team reflection and actions for moving forward with this work. And with that, that closes out the Student Success System District Network sessions for this year. Right now, we will be pausing the network and sessions. We've had a great year of learning here, and we're looking for making sure that what comes next from grad partnership to support district teams is really the most relevant and responsive thing for you. So thank you all who have joined us throughout the year. It's been a pleasure to get to hear from you and share about all these different topics that are relevant and interesting to district teams who are so important to developing that central hub to student success teams. You know, we talked about that in multiple ways today, about making sure folks don't feel alone, about making sure we have teams in place, that we have the support to understand what resources are available, to use data, that really making sure those school teams have that support system and structure in place, that we're developing a true system across the district. And so thank you all so much for joining us today and throughout the last year. Thank you again, ladies, for joining us. And everyone enjoy your summer and have a great afternoon.